When I finished 13th Child, I was like, I want to go someplace new. I think that's like one of the perks of being a writer. I'm a forever learner. Like I love doing research on things I don't know that like maybe at one point sparked my interest, but life was in the way. But now I can sit and research, sturgeon mating habits for an hour or two a day, and it's fine. It's work, right? And so after there's a big court system and political intrigue and everything at the end of 13th Child. And I was like, I want to go someplace where there are no buildings. Like, I want the wilderness. I want someplace far away, just eerie atmosphere, lots of trees. And I had just read Adam Schultz's A Whisper on the Night Wind, which is fantastic. Everyone should read it. It's so good. But it's set in Labrador. And he was exploring for this weird demon creature that there's all these campfire stories about and everything. And I will not spoil anything. Just read the book. It's so good. He does find out what it was. And so in my head, I was very much in Labrador land. And I was like, I've never been there, but it would be kind of fun to set a book kind of Labrador adjacent. And I love Canada. I live in Michigan. Um, so our neighbors to the north are fun. And I was like, that seems like a really good spot to write a creepy book. So I started kind of like picking at different fairy tales because it kind of seems to be my thing. It works well. And I've always really loved the story of Tam Lin. But I don't like fairies. I know that's really unpopular to say right now, but I don't understand the court system and like what repels them. I don't understand any of it. And it's one of those things I really don't care to learn about. Sturgeon mating habits, fine. Fairies, yeah. So I was like, I loved the story though of like this young woman who goes into the wild, into the place where she's not supposed to save the man she loves, because it's such a twist on like most fairy tales where you have the brave handsome knight coming to save the damsel in distress. And I was like, I loved the idea of like a woman just venturing off into a place she doesn't know, she's never been, it's not charted. To save someone. And it's like, is that feasible? Like there's no maps, there's no any of this. And I really wanted to explore that, but I was like, I don't like fairies. How do I get around like Tam Lin without fairies? And I started doing a little bit of research into fairies and different iterations of them. And I really loved the idea of like the Selkies, where there's like these seal women who they can shed their skin and become human, take human form. And as soon as they put their seal skin on, they become seals. And I was like, ooh, what if we did something like that, but like with more teeth? And so I've got kind of this like Scottish silky vampire kind of creature. Shapeshifts a little, but we're calling them vampires for the sake of clarity. But swapping out the fairies for vampires, and suddenly it was like, well, this is an exciting thing. And then as I was starting to tell the story, this was the first book that I ever did not outline. I'm usually a really heavy outliner. I plot out everything. I write like 20-page synopsises that I foist at my agent. Is like, is this a good idea? And it takes a couple days to read it. And then goes back and like, yes, I think you have something. And this one I was like, vibes, mood, things. I don't know. Let's just wing it. It's going to be fun and exciting to try this. And I very quickly realized I will never do that again. I need notes. Like some of the characters, like completely. My initial editor on the project, she was like, I feel like I didn't really understand this character until like the last like 20 pages. Like, neither did I. She's changed her whole like personality like 8 times now. So it was a process getting to the final book and what will be hitting shelves soon with that. But it was really exciting to like dive into. This is my first adult book also, and so like getting to explore her story like through the eyes of a woman who has experienced more of life than my teenage heroines have. Um, it's a weird cursed logging town that she lives in, and so she is a little sheltered, a little naive, just based on the fact she's stuck in this town. She hasn't seen the world. She's in love with her childhood sweetheart, Alice Beaufort. She is a map maker, and a map maker that can't leave her boundaries. It's very frustrating for her. So the town itself that she lives in, there are a series of warding stones that were put there by things. But they both protect and kind of cage the residents of Mistaken. So they're free to leave during daylight hours. They can wander as far away as they can, but the second sunset falls, if you're past the boundary stones and you're a resident of Mistaken, you get kind of yanked back. So she's able to explore as a kid, within the bounds of the warding stones. She kind of explores, and that's where she starts like her map making stuff. And she admits like her first maps are not good. They're not to scale. They're not accurate with any kind of thing. But she starts out small. She finds order by being able to carefully draw out what her knowns are. And that's one of her things. She has anxiety. She also has this weird hearing proclivity where she can hear too much of things, and sounds kind of all sound the same to her. Kind of feels like a panic attack a lot of times. And so to help with that, she maps out what she knows to be true. And so for her, setting parameters and boundaries is what kind of comforts her, and helps her make sense of unknown things. And so she starts out small as, the main town, drag. Here's the stores that are on it. Here's, it turns off here and there's a creek that comes through and all of that. And as she gets older, she starts to explore more and more outside of the boundary stones. But of course, you can only go half a day's journey because you've got a journey half back, the other half of the day is spent coming back. Her father is also the kind of the owner of the town mill. And there's these very specific trees that the whole town was based on. There were Scottish merchants that came 150 years before, specifically for this tree for lumber, because it's very light, it's very flexible. It's a really ugly tree, but once it's milled, it's fine. So on her map making expeditions, out into the wilderness, their surrounding wilderness, she's also scouting for trees for her father. There's a new copse, come cut these down, make the lumber, make some money, all of this. And so there's a lot of musing also. I keep calling it's like the colonialist Lorax. We should be saving the trees, and like we are the invasive species. With stuff that she goes through, and kind of as she gets older, she gets better at her maps. And so she maps out as much as she's able to, but at some point, obviously, she's going to run out of space that she can travel to, because the warding stones always bring them back, whether they want to or not, at the end of the day. And if you're far away, you might, hit a boulder on your way back and not make it back alive. I was on a romanticy panel a couple months ago, and they were all talking about how much they love, building up the angst and the anticipation of like that first kiss. And I'm like, I want the first like death scene. Like I love writing like murder and mayhem, and like all of that dreadful anticipation of the first time you see the monster, or just like catch the glimpse of it. Like that's my happy space. So there are things in the woods. We have the bright-eyeds, which are just terrifying beasts. They've never actually seen one, because they are protected by the warding stones. So the warding stones keep their town safe. It also holds out the bright-eyeds from ever crossing over the border. But they've heard tales of it, and they have, occasionally, a First Nations tribe will come through and with tales of what's going on, or a trapper from France will come by and be like, oh my gosh, this town was decimated by, down the coast by these things from the sky. And they have all these stories. And so they do live in fear, but they also know that they're protected. And they've got lots of, Thanksgiving rituals for the benevolence, which are the kind of elder beatific beings that gave them the warding stones. And so they kind of have like this weird symbiotic relationship where they need the benevolence needs their, gratitudes and everything. But it's all to keep out the bright-eyeds. And so the anticipation of the first time we actually see a bright-eyed, that was a really fun to get to, because that would be terrifying. Like as a kid, like, that it's not just, the monsters in your closet imagining, they're out there, like where there's stories and people who have survived their town attacks, they come to Mistaken and they're like, oh, this place is a paradise. Like they can't get us. Like why you guys are like, you have no idea how lucky you have it here. And to Greer, who just wants to get out and see the world, the warding stones are, they chafe at her. while also realizing like she's incredibly lucky to have grown up in a place where she doesn't have to worry about the sky falling apart and these monsters, descending from above. But because she knows that, she does have nightmares, as any kid would, and they get worse as she grows older into adulthood. And the first kind of nightmare dream scene that I wrote, it was just so satisfying because it was like I didn't want her to ever see the bright eyed because she's never seen one, and all the stories, how campfire tales and legends and stuff will exaggerate stuff. So I only ever wanted her to just kind of see like those little flashes. And I fully believe like M. Night Shyamalan, the Signs movie, that was the most perfect movie until you saw the alien like standing in the corner, and it took all the scariness away. But when you just see the glimpses of things, like the building of the dread and the anticipation of like what could this thing be, way scarier than like actually seeing it, standing in front of a television in the corner in broad daylight. Takes all the fun out.